Hi, everyone. My name's Addy. I'm the president of Biotech Connection Los Angeles. BCLA is a nonprofit organization run by graduate students, postdocs, and biotech professionals around LA. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and connect emerging scientists and entrepreneurs to grow and diversify biotech in LA. We host networking events, career fairs, symposiums, panel discussions, and summits each year all over the LA County. And we continue to host virtual events during the pandemic and hope to bring more events to you in the future. You can find more information about us on our website, bc-la.org. For our informational interview series, today we have Radhika Palkar, a previous member of Biotech Connection, speaking about her career path. So we have Radhika. Hi, Radhika.
Hi, Adi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. So I work as a licensing associate at USC Stevens, which is USC's tech transfer office. And before this, I got my PhD in neuroscience, did a brief postdoc at UCLA, and came back to USC, which is my PhD alma mater. And yeah.
So what led you to your current position?
So when I think around 2016, don't quote me on the year, but I was working with BCLA when it first started at UCLA, and then we kind of took it to USC and expanded. One of the events we had was an entrepreneurship summit, which I think is now called something else, but it still happens. We had a guest speaker who was a scientific director at Breakout Labs, and Dr. Hemi Parthasarthi, and I had the job to pick her up from the airport, and I got to chat with her, and she told me about her work, and I was so inspired by it that she gets to see all kinds of great new budding technologies and help them grow into companies and to go to the next step. So I thought, wow, that's such an amazing job. Maybe I would like to do something like that. At that point, I was towards the end of my PhD. I had sort of started thinking about stepping outside the lab, doing something that's still connected to science, but perhaps learning a little more about business. I was taking online classes. And so I thought, okay, so where do I get experience, to actually learn about business? And luckily, there was an internship opening at USC's tech transfer office, and I interviewed for it. And I have to say that BCLA and my work with BCLA is probably the reason why I got it, because they already knew that I was, stepping out of lab and trying to do other things and interested in that. And so that's where it started, and I got hired because they liked my work as an intern, and I gelled with the team.
Awesome. So as a licensing associate, what is a work day like for you?
Every work day is different, which is exciting. Let me describe my job a little bit. So essentially, a technology transfer office at a university is responsible for any innovation that happens in the university. They're responsible to protect it, evaluate what kind of protection it needs in terms of a patent or maybe a copyright, and then to actually market it to companies outside and who might be interested in taking over the development, going again from bench to market. These are usually very initial steps of that process. And if we do find a good partner, then we are also responsible for actually negotiating a contract to make sure that our inventors are protected, universities' interests are protected, and the technology it gets developed. So every tech transfer office is organized differently, but in USC's office, the licensing associate does all these three things. So we are really in the middle, talking to inventors, which are our faculty, but also graduate students, undergrads, and then our patent attorneys who help us write patents, and then industry folks who are involved in licensing stuff to companies. We also give some guidance for startups.
Amongst all of these, what are you involved in?
All of that.
All of that.
I'm involved in all of that, yes. And so that is why my typical day, there's no typical day. There's like our day can be, kind of categorized in either we're dealing with patent decisions and the IP part of it, or we're dealing with faculty interaction, talking to them about their work and what's happening with it. And then the third is actually talking to companies and the licensing folks at companies to see if they're interested, or if it's a startup and we're negotiating a license, that's also part of so licensing, marketing, and patents. Those are my 3 buckets, and I'm juggling between all those 3.
Awesome. So what do you enjoy the most amongst all of these?
That's a tough question because I enjoy everything for different reasons. So patents I enjoy because it's a thing that I mean, even during my internship mostly focused on the marketing aspect of it. So I didn't learn as much about the patents aspect, and it's a very different language. You write. I've written papers, and that sort of goes in one part of the patent. But then what really gets sort of examined and argued over are the claims, which really are protecting the core aspects of the science and sort of negotiating with the inventors and attorneys and figuring out what's the right way to protect it, what are the right claims to write. Although the attorneys do write most of the writing, we just have to make sure that we are not leaving any loopholes.
Yeah.
So that it's really interesting because I didn't know anything about it, and now I'm learning. And it's such a big part of if I ever were to start a company, or starting a company, you need your ideas protected, and something that VCs look for, and want to make sure that you have that kind of protection, especially in the life sciences, right? I think that's why I like it. I think it's very new to me, and I'm learning about it. Then the marketing aspect of it, I mean, I love interacting with people, so I like that aspect. I like talking to companies. The hope is that they give you an idea as to why something, if they're not interested, why they're not interested. It doesn't always happen, especially with big companies. They might not have time to do that. But it is, I love talking to companies about how they're developing our product, and what's the next step. We have one company currently that's in, for instance, that's working on this rare disease and is in clinical trials, and it's really exciting to see the kind of progress. And it's not always great. Sometimes you're saying, okay, wait, you haven't paid yet. But yeah, that's the reason I like the marketing or the company interaction aspect of it, I think. And then the faculty, of course, I would say that would be my favorite, because I mean, it depends on the faculty and depends on the invention, of course, like all things do. But that's the reason why I even got into this, right, was because I was interested in lots of different types of cool science. So it's really great to talk to them and be excited with them and plan as to, okay, what to do next. I really enjoy it.
Awesome. And was there something which was not as much exciting, or the least favorite amongst these tasks assigned to you?
I'm not trying to be diplomatic, but I'm not going to say there was a least favorite. But I will tell you what was the hardest.
Yeah.
The hardest was, there are 2 things that are hard. One was that there is a lot of administrative stuff that goes with the work. Whenever we do all this, we have to keep records of it. We have to make sure we're updating our records. We have to be able to track, how successful we've been at either marketing or licensing technologies, and making sure our faculty are happy. So there is a lot of administrative stuff, and I was warned about it, but I just you only know it when you do. So the juggling between actually doing the work and then also logging the work you're doing, is a hard one. But the other thing that's tough is perspectives, because you're talking to so many like different stakeholders, and everybody's perspective and everybody's language is different. And to get things done, you have to make sure that you understand where they're coming from, and they understand. Make sure that you say it in a way that they understand where you're coming from. So that's something that an ongoing effort.
Absolutely. So sounds like it's very different from the lab work. So what skills, so what skills do you think are the most important for someone interested in a job like yours?
I mean, lab work is, I think, a restrictive way of looking at it. If you look at it, when you're coming from a lab, you are a scientist, and we have a way of thinking about it. And I think we often underestimate the training our brains get. Yeah, sure, we learn how to do microscopy, or like how to, look for a protein in a sample. But more than that, we're getting trained to think logically, be able to destructure a problem into buckets, and be able to organize in a way that you get to the solution in an efficient way. I think that's the key, and that really helps. Like I was saying, that the hardest part is kind of juggling all these things and organizing. That helps, and of course, the love for science, especially in my job. I mean, I have to be excited about the science, otherwise I wouldn't be great at my job, right? I think, yeah. So I think it really helps in my job to have a PhD, because the inventors are more comfortable talking to me. That being said, I mean, I have colleagues who don't have PhDs, and they're doing great at it. So because there are so many different aspects of it, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that I think it helps. It also is a hurdle, because you're trained to go into depth and think of every detail, and often when you're trying to license it, or you're trying to market it, or even patent it, you don't need to go into so many details. So there's a hurdle. But yeah, that's what I bring. I think the scientific background really helps in the way that the inventors are comfortable talking to us. We are able to actually talk to attorneys about what's the key aspect of the invention. And even to market it, to be able to know really where it is, and why it's better than other things. It helps to have that science background.
So speaking about skills, were there any skills that you learned or you wish you had learned in school, which would have been beneficial to, get to this position right now?
I wish I had learned. I don't think so. I think because I was also lucky that I got this internship, so I had an idea of what the job entails, and I would really highly recommend it to anybody. I mean, it doesn't have to be an internship where you ultimately get the job in that company, but like showing work experience outside the lab really helps. And I would suggest not to be precious with your time before you get that foot in the door, at least, because you never know what leads to when and what. So you should really expose yourself to a lot of things. You should get that. You work for free, whatever. I worked for free for so many things, but I think it paid in multiples, and I'm glad that I'm here now.
Absolutely. So just speaking about your job, what are the biggest challenges you are facing day to day on the job?
Like I said, the juggling is definitely a challenge, and finding the right partner, I think, is the biggest challenge. Because you have this technology that you think is awesome, but also, of course, a lot of technologies at USC and any university are usually at the very beginning of it, right? The goal of academia is not to take things to market. The goal of academia is to get knowledge. And hopefully, and usually the knowledge does ultimately reach. I mean, it can reach in the form of a patent, or it often reaches in form of papers and publications, right?
Yeah.
But the goal of industry is different. And so there is a gap, and that's where we're trying to merge it. So finding the right partner who will take that early stage, see the value in it, and be able to develop it also to the point where it can be, can actually be useful to the public. So finding the right partner is the tough.
Yeah. So we spoke a lot about challenges. What are the biggest rewards of your job?
Biggest rewards? This is I think that's what I was telling you. I think I referred to it before when I was talking to you about a company that is in clinical trials. I mean, it's awesome when you, again, even though I'm out of the lab, the rewards are not like every single day. that something comes to market, right? It's the small rewards though. Every successful conversation, every good piece of news that we get from our licensees, every I think new data that a faculty finds and he thinks that it's probably going to cure Alzheimer's. I mean, it's awesome to be part of that, I think, and yeah, those are the rewards, I think.
Awesome. So just a final question before we sign off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with Biotech Connection Los Angeles for the audiences, who are wondering how is it to work for the organization?
Oh, it's awesome. You will find a team that becomes your friends and your friends for life, really. And you will, just being exposed to so many different things that you won't be when if you're just in lab. It's a different world out there, and I feel like even if you ultimately decide, no, the lab is where I want to be and I want to be an academic scientist, or it's great to have a perspective of the other side of the field. Working with BCLA was probably like one of the proudest things I've done and one of the best things that have happened, especially in the past few years for me. When I joined, it was a small team, and I was just lucky. I think a friend of mine at USC said, hey, I know these people at UCLA, then they're trying to, they've started this organization, and I went there, and I remember meeting everybody, Stephanie, Katrina, Yari, in a little classroom. They interviewed me, of course, like it always is with BCLA. And we started and we figured things out as we went along, I think. And it's just it looks like it's become a well-oiled machine, Adi. It's great. I'm so proud of you.
I think since, you joined when we started the organization, and in the last 5 years, we've definitely grown a lot, and we've had we have hundreds of attendees now at our events, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
Something, which you guys really put in the effort back in the day, which it makes my job easier now because you've laid the foundation of the organization.
Yeah, no, it was a great experience. And I feel like one of the things that was part of BCLA and part of I think was very fulfilling as an experience, and also helped with interviews for jobs, was, if you see a problem, just solve it. I think when I was at USC, there wasn't for instance, a career fair, job fair for specifically for life scientists. And the job fairs at USC, and I'd gone to a bunch of them, were just mostly engineering companies that came to hire. And that was one of the first things that we did remember, Adi, with BCLA. And it was personally fulfilling, but also it gives you the experience to put on your resume, if that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And you would be proud to know that this year was our 5th iteration of the career fair, and we had more than 250 people.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. That's amazing.
So we've definitely kept the career fair there, and now there is a life science focused career fair at USC, which didn't exist before.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm also very proud that it does.
Yeah, that was Adi's first event, was it?
It was my first event.
Yeah, the first ever career fair was his first event.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. So it was really amazing chatting with Radhika, and getting to learn about what a licensing associate job really means. So thank you so much. Awesome.
Thanks, Adi.